Amazon với mức giá cực kỳ ưu đãi như đăng ký brand với USPTO, từ Helen Hand, từ trên Scout, Logistics và Warehouse. Xem hình thông tin chi tiết dưới phần mô tả nhé.
Today, we're going to go over all of the latest and greatest strategies having to do with optimizing your listing in 2022, including some things I've never ever gone over here on this podcast. How cool is that? Pretty cool, I think. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Serious Sellers Podcast by Helium10. I am your host, Bradley Sutton, and this is the show that's a completely BS-free, unscripted, and unrehearsed organic conversation about serious strategies for serious sellers of any level in the Amazon or Walmart world. Today, we're going to be focusing a little bit more on Amazon, and in particular, it's going to be all about optimizing your listing. Now, we had just done an online workshop that we do like once every year and a half. It's like a webinar that we do, usually supposed to be like once every year, but it's been so long since we updated it that we just did it a few weeks ago. And so you guys want to see the whole thing and be able to watch it, like on a video and see nonstop screen shares and things like that. Go to h10listings.com and you should be able to catch it there. But I'm going to give you guys an overview here on this podcast that hopefully, even though maybe you can't see exactly what I'm doing, those of you who aren't watching the video of this, you'll be able to understand what I'm talking about. And then maybe you can go later to that video to get some more details, because there's a lot of stuff, guys, that has changed over the last couple of years as far as indexing goes, as far as, what is indexed, what's not indexed, photography, just tons and tons of different things. PPC, how that relates to if you're indexed or not. And it's long overdue that we did one of these. So I'm happy that we're doing it now. Like I said, there's a lot of things that has changed as far as listing optimization goes, but there's also a lot of things that have stayed the same. And one is just the general principle. I've said this once, I've said it a million times. We here at Helium10 obviously help you through our tools to find great products, whether it's through Black Box or Pinterest Trend Finder. And then you can maybe find a great supplier from the Alibaba Supplier Finder. You might have the best product in the world. The second step, you might have the best keywords in the world, thanks to the research that you can do in Cerebro and Magnet and other tools that we have. But all of that is useless if you don't have a well-optimized listing, right? First of all, if you don't even get the keywords into your listing, how are you going to be searchable? How are customers going to find it? And then know that you have an amazing product and give you 5-star reviews, right? And if you don't have a product that can be found and bought, it doesn't matter how amazing your product is. It's useless. It's just going to be sitting there and collecting dust in Amazon warehouses. Now, one thing I went over in this workshop, and I think is important to understand, is how just small changes and small impacts can have kind of a big impact on your bottom line. All right. So small changes to your listing can help your conversion rate, and that can have a big impact on your bottom line. All right. Let me just explain it. Let's just say, pretend your product is the coffin shelf, the Project X coffin shelf. All right. That actually retails for $29.97 on Amazon. Now, let's say you've got 100 daily sessions or 100 people are viewing your listing every day, okay? And your conversion rate is 8%, which is actually not that great. It's pretty bad if your conversion rate is 8%, all right? But watch what a little bit can do. So if your conversion rate is 8%, that means every sale you're doing $29.97, as I said, that comes out to in a month about $7,100 or $7,200 is what you're grossing. Now, what if you could just, tweak a few things here and there on your listing? Your sessions doesn't go up, everything else stays the same, but your conversion rate goes up just 2% to 10%. Well, what that means is you are actually now selling 10 units a day instead of 8, right? Still at $29.97, you're now grossing $9,000 a month. That's an increase of almost $2,000 just from that 10 or that 2% increase to 10%. What if you increase it another 5%? Guys, we're talking single-digit number increases here. We're not talking about, hey, increase your conversion rate 20% or 30%. We're talking single-digit increases. All right, let's just say now you go up to 15%. You still only have 100 daily sessions. Now you're selling 15 units a day, right, at that $29.97. You're now grossing $13,500 a month. From your original conversion rate from 8 to 15, you are now, just by optimizing your listing, and if it has this effect, grossing $6,300 a month more. All right. So you see what kind of effect just a small bump on your conversion rate, 2%, 3%, 4% can have. And that's just the beauty of it. Now, what happens though is listing optimization isn't just about, changing your conversion rate, about the people who are already going to see your page, right? It's about, getting more keywords into your listing, knowing how to put the keywords in your listing so that perhaps you can actually be seen by a wider audience. So imagine this double effect. Not only can you increase your conversion rate, but you can increase your sessions. So remember in those scenarios, I was giving you, 100 sessions. What if you can increase that to 150 sessions and increase your conversion rate to 10, 12% from that 8%? You can see how it's kind of a snowball effect. And so that's the power of listing optimization. Just a little tweak here or there and little tiny increases to your conversion rate and little increases to the exposure of how many people are seeing your product, and it can have a huge impact on your bottom line. Now, in that workshop I told you, h10listings.com, you actually can see a whole bunch of detailed strategies on your photography. We've actually gone over that recently on the podcast with Leilama. She was actually the one who was on that workshop with me. Again, if you guys want to see that part, make sure to go to h10listings.com. You can see that part there. I'm not going to talk about it too much on here because we just did that, about a month ago. But we had some great info on, what are infographic images, 3D imaging, things of that nature. Now, let's just focus right now again on the content of an Amazon listing as far as the written content. All right. And now there's two things that you've got to keep in mind. Your listings should be optimized for, number one, the Amazon algorithm, but then number two, your target customer. I've said it before so many times that one of the biggest mistake that Amazon sellers make sometimes is they get too caught up in the metrics and thinking like a seller. They have their seller's hat on instead of the buyer's hat. All right. What do I mean by that? Obviously at Helium 10, we give you so many tools. We give you so much training like this. We tell you what's important to algorithm and about max characters and title density and all these metrics and magnet IQ score and things like that. And then sellers get so focused on that stuff, which are important, but they forget at the end of the day, they've got to sell to an actual customer, an actual human being. So it's a balancing act. If you are selling on Amazon and you're optimizing a listing, you've got to make two people happy. I remember the first person I heard who said it like that about keeping two people happy was Brock Johnson, who's been on this podcast before. But number one, again, is the Amazon algorithm. You got to make the Amazon algorithm happy so that you can get that exposure. But number two, and even more important, you have got to make your buyer happy. All right. Because if all you had to worry about was the Amazon algorithm, you could just throw a whole bunch of random keywords and stuff titles and stuff bullet points and all this stuff. And you can be fully optimized for the Amazon algorithm so that the Amazon algorithm loves your listing and throws you up on page one. But at the end of the day, if a customer is just going to see this whole garbly-glook of a listing, they're not going to buy it. So remember to balance that out. Now, let's talk about the order of what aspects of a listing are important to that first person that we have to make happy, the Amazon algorithm. And this has not changed as far as I know. And in my test, I still see it kind of working the same way. But this was something that actually kind of got out of Amazon a while back where it actually showed, there was a document that showed what they view as the most important parts. And the number one most important is the title. Number two, the back-end search terms. And number three, I kind of call this 2A and 2B actually, because in my experience, in my test, it kind of interchangeable. The impact of both of these are very similar. So 2A and 2B for me would be the back-end search terms and then the back-end subject matter if your listing has it. Now, the next one would be the bullet points. And then lastly, the description. Now, just because that description is all the way at the end doesn't mean it's completely not important. I mean, if you're in a niche where you want to be indexed for as many keywords as possible, well, you need to make sure that you take advantage of all of the different aspects of a listing. Now, let's talk about getting indexed. All right. Now, I'm going to go a little bit deep in here, and actually, I'm going to talk a little bit more than I did even on that workshop that I did, that webinar, because some things I've discovered in the last few days kind of are kind of blowing my mind about how things are different than even 2020. All right. So index. What does index even mean? You guys have heard me talk about this a lot of times, how Manny Coates, one of the first ones to talk or use that word in kind of the common vernacular of an Amazon seller, where being indexed means, are you searchable for a keyword? Has Amazon related your listing to a certain keyword so that it's potentially possible that you could show up in the search results or perhaps the sponsored results for a certain keyword? Now, what does that mean? Well, first of all, if you type a keyword, is it possible that you show up at all? Now, here's the thing. You could be indexed for something, but not ranking for it and invisible if you were to search, even going to the last page. Well, that's because, years ago, Amazon kind of stopped in most categories showing like all 30 or 40 pages of the results, right? Back in the day, you type, like 2017, you type in iPhone 6 case or whatever was the iPhone case then, and it'll say 1 of 50 out of 20,000 results or something like that. Well, you could literally go page by page to almost all of those to the end to see all of them. Now, in most categories now in search results, you can only see the top 7 pages usually. So which is about 300 results, organic results, all right? So just because you're indexed does not always mean you're showing up in the search results. So that's important to understand. There's a differentiation there. Sometimes I hear people say, "Oh, Helium 10 index checker says I'm indexed for this, but I checked and I don't see myself anywhere." Well, that's because Amazon only shows like 306, but there are many search results where it's up to thousands, tens of thousands of results show up. So if you want to know how many different products are indexed for a certain keyword, you just type that keyword in, and then at the very top of the page, it'll say something like, "Hey, this is 1 out of 48 for 526 results for coffin shelf." All right. Now, why is being indexed so important, guys? This is important because you want to show up. You want to be found either in sponsored ads or organic ads. You have got, or organic results, I should say, you want to be able to show up for a certain keyword. That's where 50% of sales come from, are searches. And so if you're not searchable for a keyword, well, how are you going to get found by that customer that you are targeting? So how can you get indexed is the next question. And of course, there's just common sense things, right? Is put the keywords in your listings, right? Just bottom line. If you want to be indexed, the easiest way, get those keywords into your listing. Now, you do not need to have every single keyword phrase in your listing to get indexed. Now, we always suggest having your most important phrases, usually about 20 to 25, if you can get them in phrase form in your listing. And again, phrase form means like if the keyword is black coffin shelf, you have black coffin shelf in that exact phrase somewhere in your listing, perhaps even multiple times. We'll talk a little bit about that later. But that is actually important for the phrases. That again is making the Amazon algorithm happy. But to be indexed for a phrase like that, you do not necessarily have to have it in phrase form. I like to only save those for my most important ones. For example, you could have black in the title, coffin in the bullet points, shelf in the description, and theoretically speaking, most of the time, as long as Amazon thinks that you're relevant to it, you will be searchable or indexed for black coffin shelf, even though it's not in phrase form. So the process that you should do in order to get indexed is when you're doing your keyword research. And again, we have other podcast episodes we've done about that as far as the details go, but you might come up with thousands and thousands of keywords that you potentially might want to show up for, right? Pick your top 20 based on what's the most important and the highest searched for your exact niche, the most relevant to you. Put those in phrase form, right? Keep those on a separate list. And then all the rest of the 1,000, 2,000 phrases, what you do, copy all of those and put it into a tool called Frankenstein. All right. Now with Frankenstein, with just a couple of clicks, you're going to be able to take all of those 1,000 phrases and then extract out the single unique keywords. Because if you have 1,000 phrases that are related to coffin shelf, I guarantee coffin is in like 200 or 300 of those phrases, right? You only need it once in your listing though, in order to be searchable for it. All right. And then what you're going to do is you're going to get those phrases, those phrases split up into the individual keywords, and then you copy your individual keywords to a listing builder. All right. Now with listing builder, you are going to be able to make sure that you have all of your individual keywords that you wanted to get in your listing and all of the phrases as well that you wanted to get into your listing. And then, so even though you might only have 300 individual words, you technically could be index for up to 1,000 or thousands of other keywords that those individual words are part of. Now, here, let me get a little bit into something that I didn't talk about. All right. Now, as you guys know, you Helium 10 members, we've got Index Checker, one of the first tools that Helium 10 ever came up with. Great tool. And it's the only index checking tool that I know of that does 3 checks. Now, if you don't have Index Checker, you can still do these checks on your own. All right. The first check that Index Checker is doing what we call the traditional way of checking if you're indexed. And this used to work 100% of the time before, but then it kind of, stopped being the only check that you could do, about 3 or 4 years ago. So you copy the ASIN and the keyword, and then you put it into an Amazon search result. So if you want to say, hey, is this coffin shelf index for the word coffin shelf, I would get the ASIN of that product, and then space, and then put coffin shelf in the search bar, and then see if it actually comes up. All right. Now here's the thing, that stopped working completely as far as being the only way to check. Like you could be not indexed there, but still be indexed on Amazon. So we came up with 2 more checks that you can do. The secondary check is what we call the storefront check. Now in Index Checker, we don't automatically do that. So if you guys are familiar with Helium 10, you've got to actually enter the storefront ID into a field there before you press enter on the index check to make sure it's doing that other check. All right. So storefront check, though, if you're just doing it on your own without Helium 10, you would go to the storefront of a listing. All right. The way you do that is, let's say you're on a listing and then it says shipped by Amazon, sold by Manny's Mysterious Oddities, or whatever is the name, or how cool is that, I think is our storefront name there. Click there and you see the storefront ID in the URL at the top of that page. You've got to take that storefront ID. It's a long number of digits, more than an ASIN, and then paste it into Index Checker. All right. Or you could just go into Amazon and go to that storefront and then actually click the next page, which is their storefront, where it shows all of the seller's products, and then just type in the keyword and the ASIN there. And that's the storefront check. Now, the third one is kind of difficult to do. It's called the field ASIN check. And what we're doing is we're just checking some URL. That is just another way of checking if you are indexed. And so again, there's 3 different ways that you can check if you are indexed. Now, here is some of the new stuff. Number one thing I've been noticing for months now is that the traditional index check gives a lot of what I like to call false positives. All right. And it's not that Index Checker is wrong. I mean, this happens if you just check in Amazon yourself. But if you put in the ASIN and the keyword, it'll show up your product, but it doesn't always mean your index. That's why I always suggest doing 2 or 3 checks, or just using Index Checker, because a lot of results now, you can put in a random keyword plus the ASIN and it'll show up, but it does not mean your index. Why Amazon is doing that, I have no idea. But it's really weird. Like, you'll enter in your product and then a random keyword, and then 15 results will come up, including your product, but it doesn't always mean that you're indexed. So if I'm using Index Checker, I usually like to try and make sure that at least 2 of those checks are going through. Now, here's the other thing that's crazy, guys. Sometimes you could use Index Checker or be checking these things yourself, and it will say 3 times, we do 3 checks, and it will say you are not indexed, or you're using not Helium 10, and you try 3 different ways, and in no way you're indexed, but you are ranking organically and in sponsored ads. I had this happen with a coffin shelf. I've been doing a lot of testing, lately, and there was a keyword. It was spider web shelf. All right. Now spider and web are not in the coffin shelf listing anywhere. So from day 1, I was not indexed, but I checked spider web shelf, and all 3, those 3 words together, not indexed in Index Checker, not indexed on Amazon, but I was ranking for it on page 1. All right. And I'm like, what in the world is going on? I had never seen that before. And I started looking into other listings. There are a lot of listings out there where if you check these traditional ways, it is not indexed. It will say that you're not indexed, but sure enough, there you are in sponsor results. I tried this for some other keywords that I knew I was not indexed for, and I tried to even run sponsored ads on it. And sure enough, I got impressions. And this is, I don't know if anybody's talked about this, guys, but this is kind of impactful. Before, you could not run a manual sponsored ad for a targeted keyword that you were not indexed for. And we've given you hacks and different things that still work on how you can get indexed for keywords that aren't on your listing, by relating yours to other listings, etc. But now, in the last few months, this is just really interesting. You can now even run exact manual ads on keywords that not only are not in your listing, but you are not indexed under the traditional way. And so I started diving into this to try and see if I can figure out, what was causing this. And it was very interesting is that related keywords had some activity in sponsored ads. So I had never targeted spider web shelf in sponsored ads before, but in an auto or broad campaign, it was like spider web with no space in the middle, and something else came up, and we didn't get purchases on it. Nope, no purchases on these keywords, but we had impressions from like an auto or broad campaign, and we actually had a number of clicks. And so it looks like what is happening is Amazon in the back end maybe like kind of like loosening their criteria for what gets indexed and not indexed. Like I said before, to get indexed, you would always have to have like at least a couple of conversions for some kind of keyword, and then only that keyword would be now indexed thanks to that PPC from an auto or broad campaign. But now even just clicks and activity and impressions can get you indexed, but not only for that keyword, but like other versions of the keyword. So I looked in our sponsored ads. As a matter of fact, let me try and show that to you guys here again. If you're watching this on YouTube.
Anh chị đang bán hàng trên Amazon. Scout cung cấp các dịch vụ dành cho các nhà bán hàng trên Amazon với mức giá cực kỳ ưu đãi như đăng ký brand với USPTO, từ Helm Hand, từ trên Scout, lược, tích và warehouse. Xem hình thông tin chi tiết dưới phần mô tả nhé.
You'll probably see it. Yeah, so I'm here in Adtomic, as you can see, and I did a search for all of the keywords with spider in it. And you'll see here, there is not, on the right column here, if you guys can see this, you'll see that there are zero orders, but there is a couple hundred impressions here for all these keywords related to spider. And we had a total of 60 clicks. So because of all these clicks, I guess, for things like spider coffee mug and spider mirror and spider web rug and Spider-Man bathroom decor. And here's one, spider shelf. It's not spider web shelf. But because of that, what happened is that Amazon is like, you know what? We're just going to go ahead and kind of like make sure you're searchable for all these keywords. You're not going to know that we've made you searchable, but it's happening. All right. So, you're going to see some things in Helium 10 that'll help kind of like let you know if there are keywords that you're not even indexed for, but that you are still searchable. That'll be coming down the road. But this is all kind of new. So just beware, guys, that the traditional ways that you check, like, hey, am I indexed? Am I not indexed? And then am I going to be able to be shown for PPC? They're not necessarily foolproof ways. I guarantee you guys are able to target keywords in PPC that you probably didn't even think that you could target because you weren't indexed in any traditional index. And so, some different ways to kind of know if this is happening is run your PPC reports. If you're using Atomic or if you're using your Seller Central, and see where you've gotten clicks. And then what you do is you check those common words. Like I showed you before, there was 33 different words that had spider in it that I was getting clicks and activity. And what happened was now long tail keywords that had spider, I was now showing up for in Amazon search results. So tools that can help you do that. If you see a certain keyword that you seem to have activity on and that you are not indexed for or that you don't have in your listing, take that root keyword or root keyword phrase, put it in the Helium 10 tool magnet, and then sort it out for Smart Complete in magnet, and that's going to show you a bunch of long tail keywords that have that root keyword in there. So again, guys, this is the first time I am ever saying this in any public forum, because this is kind of like new discoveries that I've just recently been making. Now, some of this, again, is kind of like we've talked about this for a couple of years, like getting indexed for keywords that aren't in your listing and having activity related to it. But this is the first time where now you can actually start getting indexed for these variations of keywords that you haven't, not only do you not have in your listing, but you haven't even had purchases from these keywords. I think this is really cool. It's giving you more ability to show up for more keywords. And so it makes it that much more important that all of the root keywords you do have in your listing, because the more you have that, the more things that Amazon is going to like show you for in broad and auto campaigns. And all it takes is a couple of these other like kind of big keywords that have a lot of other long tail variations of it to have activity, and boom, exponentially, you have the potential to come up for a lot more, keywords in both PPC and organic. So really cool stuff that is happening right now in the indexing world. And I'm sure I'm going to be talking about this more later on. Let's talk a little bit about going back to the rest of the listing. We said before that the most important one is the title. So let's talk about some don'ts for the title. Don't keyword stuff, guys. All right. I've talked about this so many times before. This is going back to making the customer happy. All right. No customer wants to see some crazy keyword stuff title. Like there was one I found the other day that I used for the workshop. And let me read you this title, guys. It says, Auschwitz compatible with Samsung Galaxy S4 wallet case and tempered glass screen protector, flip cover, card holder, cell accessories, phone cases for Galaxy. That's a misspelling. And it goes on and on and on. That's literally all the title. That's ridiculous. If you're a customer, do you want to see a title like that? Nobody wants to see something like that. Another thing you guys should not be doing is promotional phrases. Some of the keywords that Amazon actually marks and tells you not to do are keywords like free shipping, 100% quality guaranteed, hot item, bestseller, and things like that. Another don't go over the max characters if possible. All right. Now I say if possible because this is really weird. There's first of all, there's tons of different max characters that you'll see in different listings. Some say 50, some say 80, some say 100, some say 250. But I actually have not seen listings get suppressed by going over. Some even top sellers do it. Like there is this shampoo and conditioner from Wow, and if you actually put it into your own Seller Central account, you'll see that Amazon is telling you don't go over 50 characters. All right. However, this top seller that's doing like millions of dollars a year, it's got like almost 200 characters in it. And obviously nothing has happened to it. So, I know there's smart Alex out there who say, hey, Bradley, why are you saying not to go over the max characters? I do it and I haven't had any trouble. I get it. There's a lot of times where Amazon does not always enforce it. I'm just saying what Amazon is saying. It's probably best to try and keep it under, especially if it's 250. Now, if it's 50, that is like super low. I probably would go over if everybody else in the niche is going over. I'm probably going to go over too. But yeah, don't go over 250 because that just doesn't look that great. Another thing not to do is to use all caps. Sometimes people say, oh, I'm going to use all caps in my title so that I can stand out more in search results. Actually, that's against Amazon terms of service to do that. What are some of the things that you should do in your title? First thing, get your most important keyword phrases in your title. All right. I've talked about this before. We call it keyword stuffing without keyword stuffing. For example, let's say your main keywords are egg tray, wooden egg tray, rustic wooden egg tray decor. If I started off my title, rustic wooden egg tray decor, guess what? All of those 4 phrases is all there in phrase form because they're kind of like feeding off of each other. It's all in phrase form. You got rustic, wooden egg tray, you've got wooden egg tray, you've got egg tray, and you've got egg tray decor all in one. All right. So this is great to do if you want to get some important keywords and make that path to page 1 easier for those keywords, get those in your title. Another thing we've talked about is having in mind title density. All right. We have that in almost all of our keyword research tools now, where you can actually see how many times on page 1, the last time we checked, a certain keyword is in the title in phrase form in those search results on page 1. And if you find a keyword that is really relevant to your niche and, decently searched and it has a low title density number, like 3, there's only like 3 or less products on page 1 that have that title or that have that keyword in the title, it's going to be a lot easier for you to get to page 1 as far as, when you're trying to get that initial activity. Another thing that's important is to optimize your canonical URL. All right, optimize your canonical URL. How can you do that? This is one of the ones that kind of like bonus tips I gave, and I've talked about this before. Nothing new here. But for those of you who don't know, first of all, what your canonical URL. Let me just show it to you. Those of you watching on YouTube here, what your canonical URL is. The URL that Amazon assigns every listing, and it's the one that's indexed principally by Google as well. So if you search for any keyword on Amazon, you click it and you look at the URL, it'll say amazon.com, and then there'll be a /, and then usually 5, 6, or 7 words separated by a dash, and that's your canonical URL, and it's what shows up into in Google as well. Now, the way that you can kind of lock in your canonical URL from day one is get 5 full words. This doesn't work 100% of the time. For me, it's like 90% of the time, because sometimes I'm not sure what Amazon considers a full word. I know numbers are not considered full words, and then like and to and the are not considered full words, but sometimes there's like a gray area and it's hard to know which Amazon considers a full word. But if you put 5 keywords right there and then a dash, space after the last keyword, and then a dash, and then another space, usually those first 5 keywords will lock in as your canonical URL. Pro tip, you can actually change it later on. You know, like I've done it before. 6 months after I had a listing, I changed those first 5 words. Boom. 24 hours later, my canonical URL changed without having to do anything else. Now, sometimes that doesn't work, and sometimes that doesn't work for me. So what's plan B? Plan B is go ahead and change it. But then if it doesn't work after like 24 to 48 hours, all you have to do is open up a case to Seller Central and just say, hey, Seller Central, I'd like to optimize my canonical URL to accurately represent my product. Could you make it this? And then actually give them the canonical URL that you're wanting to change it to with like 5 or 6 keywords separated by dashes. And as long as it's relevant, it's not something crazy, they'll be like, oh yeah, cool, no problem. And I just did that a couple weeks ago, still works, and they changed it on our test coffin shelf listing. More tips. Hey, put your brand name in the title, guys. You know, I know this is a controversial topic. A lot of people don't want to do that, but that's what Amazon says they want you to do. And they even say that, hey, if you don't put your canonical URL, or you don't put your canonical, if you don't put your brand name in the title, we have an algorithm or a bot, or I forgot what exactly they says, but it says we'll sometimes go ahead and put it for you. Now, here's the thing. They don't tell you this, but if that happens, I've seen it happen before. What happens is if they have to go change your listing title, it's going to change to something super short and not optimized. And then once they change it, you're not able to change it anymore. Like, it's locked in. So be on the safe side, guys. Go ahead and put your brand name in your title to kind of save, you from having to deal with that issue later on. Now, another thing that a lot of sellers don't do is they don't keep truncation in mind. Truncation means that sometimes in search results on a desktop or in mobile, Amazon cuts off the title after a certain number of characters. All right. So take a look at where your listing or how your listing is showing up in mobile. I gave a couple of examples on the webinar. There was one where there was this like moon shelf, and then the very last part of the title says moon pha, F-A-P-H-A, and then ... It got truncated, right? It got truncated to moon pha, and that's, it's like a Vietnamese soup, right? But it really was trying to say moon phase design or something like that. But that half the word was cut off, so it just looked really weird. The other example I showed was this like hook, this coffin shaped hook, but then it got cut off right where after it says in the title coffin shaped towel. And so you're looking at this maybe in search results, you're like, what? Am I buying a coffin shaped towel? Like, what the heck is that? So again, try not to have your title cut off in some random place. All right, it's really important to make sure that in search results your listings make sense and that people actually do want to click on it. All right, so that's the title. Now let's talk about the search terms and subject matter, some best practices there. First of all, use all characters available. Now, this is important because this is valuable real estate. Like the title, you're very limited with the kind of space you can use. So usually, traditionally, for search terms, it's about 250 characters, or 249 bytes, I should say. Now here's the interesting thing. For the search terms, for the longest time, it was only 249 characters. Then it became like 5,000 at one point and went back down to 1,000. And then now for a few years, it's been like 249, 250, around there. Now, before, if you were brand registered, and this is one of the things that we talked about in our last workshop about a year and a half ago, if you're brand registered, the cool thing was that Amazon would not count the spaces. So if it said you had 249 bytes, if you're brand registered, you can go into the brand registry part of your Seller Central and use the search term optimizer and actually put in extra keywords that you could not put in the regular backend of your listing, because in that field, it would not count the spaces as bytes. Bytes include spaces, for those who don't know. Now, the interesting thing is now everybody, whether you are brand registered or not, and when I say now, this has been like a few months. It was late 2021 where they made this change, where now everybody can go ahead and put extra beyond 249, not counting the spaces. So, how many that is, it depends on how long your words are, right? But, usually you can get like about 280, 290 bytes now, because Amazon is not counting the bytes. It's only in this field. In the other fields, Amazon still counts bytes the normal way to count bytes and characters, which includes spaces. But for some reason, in the search terms, now for everybody, not just brand registered sellers, you have a little bit more real estate that you can do. It's not anything earth shattering, but hey, search terms is important. You can get a good 2, 3, 4, 5 more words in there, if not more, with them not counting the bytes. For subject matter, you can do usually about 50 characters per line. All right. And usually you have 3 lines or up to 5 lines sometimes of subject matter that you can use. We'll talk a little bit about subject matter later and how you can get that if you don't have subject matter. Another thing is don't duplicate words in just one field. I don't really like that. I threw up an example. I know people do that, guys, and they probably do it for the Amazon algorithm. But again, I just can't see buyers liking this. Like one of the top collagen peptides out there. Check out this title. It says, collagen powder, purely inspired collagen peptides powder, collagen supplements for women and men, collagen protein powder. Guys, that was all one title. If you notice, I said collagen 4 times and powder 3 times, all in one title. I do not like to duplicate the same word in the same exact field. Now, I'll talk a little bit later about duplicating, something in your title and in the search terms or subject matter. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but don't do it in the same exact field. Like one line of subject matter, one field of search terms, one bullet point. Don't be using the same word, guys. Amazon doesn't like it, and I can't imagine that, Amazon buyers, would like that either. Another thing is you should use misspelled words and foreign language words. All right. An example I used when I did the workshop was, you type in magnet or in magnet, you type in collagen and you see a bunch of misspellings like COLAGN and things like that. Use those that you find in magnet, put it in the back end of your listing. I don't like putting those in the front end because it makes it look like you can't spell. All right. Spanish words, put those in the back end, and other language keywords too. Sometimes they're Spanglish, like for example, colágeno for women is a keyword that's Spanglish. There's one word that's Spanish, one word that's English. So I like, if it's a really high search volume, that one actually has 27,000 searches a month. I'm going to put that in phrase form in the back end of my listing to get that extra juice. Another thing that's happening now is there's a lot of non-Spanish and English keywords being searched on Amazon. Like for example, the Korean word for hoe, like a garden hoe, HOE, is homie. And if you look in Cerebro on some of these gardening hoes, you'll see actual Korean words, kind of like the shirt I'm wearing now. I'm wearing a shirt from Reply 1988, my favorite Korean drama, but it's in Hangul, which is, the Korean alphabet. So people are actually typing with a Korean keyboard into Amazon USA and typing in these Korean words for products that they want. And this is a great example. If you type in hoe, HOE, into Amazon, the English word, there's 1,000 gardening hoe products that come up. That means there's 1,000 products indexed for this keyword. If you type in the Korean word for hoe, homie, in the actual Hangul, the Korean alphabet, only 148 products are indexed for that keyword. So guys, use tools like Magnet and Cerebro to find these other language keywords, get those into the back end of your listing in the search terms or subject matter so that you can be indexed for it. 148 results come up. That means pretty much you just get your listing in there, or you get that into your listing, you're going to be on page 3 instantly. If you don't have access to subject matter, if you're in the foreign country, I'm sorry. You know, like Germany, UK, the last I checked, they've never had subject matter available to most of the categories, if not all the categories. In the USA, more and more listings now have it disappeared from the back end of the listing. So if you were to like look in the back end of, for example, our coffin shelf, you'll see all it shows right here is the search terms. There is no space for the subject matter. So if you guys want to get subject matter into your listing, if you have a USA listing, and if you're a diamond member of Helium 10, what you have to do is you just need to go into Listing Builder, and then in the subject matter, go ahead and enter in 3, 4, 5 lines of subject matter, and then hit the sync to Amazon button. And what we're doing is we're actually syncing with the back end of your listing, and you'll never see it in the back end of your listing under subject matter. But trust me, it works. I've done this time and time again where I check if it's updating, and sure enough, it does. Words that wasn't indexed before, 15 minutes later, after syncing my listing with Listing Builder and putting something in the back end for the subject matter there, I now have subject matter. So at least 150 characters, 3 lines of 50 I would use, and then I would go ahead and try and do all 5 too, just to see if you can get that. So great little hack there that unless you have a Helium 10 and the Diamond plan, you're not able to do. For some of you guys that, you know, the Diamond plan, a lot of people use just so they can have Atomic and they can have sub users and a bunch of other things. But just if you have a lot of listings, just the fact that you can get subject matter, which is so important for super important indexing issues, that's worth the extra $100 in my opinion for the Diamond plan to get those rank juice from your subject matter. Now, another thing not to do in subject matter and search terms, don't use brands, other competitor brands, trademark words, ASINs. This is against Amazon terms of service. I always get asked that, hey, can I put, you know, the brand name of my competitor in the back end? You know, they won't know I have it. So I just want to get like index for it. No, don't do it, guys. I don't think it helps that much anyways. And secondly, it's literally against Amazon terms of service. You don't want to get your listing shut off. So guys, we're going to have to, you know, split this into 2 parts because I've already been at this for like 45 minutes or so. I apologize, but we've got a lot of information to go over. Now, in the next episode, I'm going to give you guys more tips on some A+ content and some other advanced strategies that I've been studying as far as listing optimization. But I hope this gets you on the right track for optimizing at least the copy of your listing. A lot of new stuff we talked about today, like things that are happening with indexing that have not happened before, and some other cool tests about like the 1000 on the bullet points and other things. If you guys have been testing anything cool, let me know. Find the Instagram for this podcast, H10Bradley. Send me a message on there or comment somewhere on there. Let me know if you found some new stuff, or tag me in the Helium 10 Facebook group. I would love to hear what is working and not working for you as far as your listing copy goes. This is something that's rapidly changing. In the past few months, we've already seen multiple things changing on the Amazon side as far as how they do listings and indexing and PPC and things like that. So I'd love to hear what you are seeing out there, and then we can incorporate it in future trainings. Look forward to seeing you guys soon at the Prosper Show. If you're listening to this and it's before March 15th or March 14th, I believe, make sure to drop in on our booth at Prosper Show, or go to our Helium 10 social, hang out with us, h10.me/Prosper 2022. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode, and we'll give you some more great strategies for listing optimization. We'll see you then.
Chị đang bán hàng trên Amazon. Skyrock cung cấp các dịch vụ dành cho các nhà bán hàng trên Amazon với mức giá cực kỳ ưu đãi như đăng ký brand với USPTO, từ Helium 10, từ trên Scout, lược, tiết và warehouse. Xem thêm thông tin chi tiết dưới phần mô tả nhé.